So, folks, yeah, this is a long-awaited, anticipated, and now it's real. We're having Attorney Peter Santos in studio to tell us his story. So, you know, he's been very active in the community, but you don't know the real Peter Santos until you've met him here on the Pirate Podcast. So welcome, sir. It is a pleasure and honor. And please tell us about yourself. Tell the people of Guam about you and why you want to be Attorney General of Guam.
Start with your background. You know, you're born here, right?
Thank you. But first, I want to say Biba Mes Somoru, Biba Marianas, Biba Guam, Biba Jeff Pleewell, Biba Pirates Cove. You know, I am just so honored and privileged to be here today with the legendary Jeff and the legendary Doc and the soon-to-be more legendary Mr. Hermosa. It's Sunday and you can't have a good Sunday without mimosas and Charlie Hermosa, right? And then it's also, I've met this beautiful lady here, Miss Bistra Mendiola, several times in the campaign trail last election. Right? And we've gotten to know each other. But going back to my background, I was born in Agat. I was living my family was living in a tin shack without indoor plumbing, without electricity. Our electricity was an extension cord from the Regis family next door, right? And that's how we grew up. Typhoon Pamela wiped that little thing out, and then we went up to Santa Rita, where my formative years, that's where I remember growing up, was in Santa Rita. We were living on Section 8, welfare, food stamps, free lunch, you name it, hand-me-downs. That's how my worldview was in the beginning. And I always was looking for somebody to help me, somebody to give me something, right? It wasn't until I became an adult where I realized I need to pull my own weight. It's very debilitating to have that kind of dependency mindset, right? And it's not the kids' fault. But when we become adults, we need to change that and become more self-sufficient, right? There was even a point when we were living in California, because we moved to California for education and opportunities, and most of our family was out there. There was even a point when we were living in a station wagon and we ended up in a homeless shelter. And that was because my mom got addicted to crack cocaine. You know, I tell this story all the time. It's life. It happens. And so going through that was very, very, it formed a lot of my resilience, because you're forced to grow up. You're forced to be the parent at that point in time, when your parents are, you know, dysfunctional. And so that's the kind of person I became. As soon as I got out of high school, I came back to Guam to take care of my grandmother who was sick, and I joined the police department. And in the police department, I had a bunch of great mentors. I wouldn't have gone to college if it wasn't for one of my supervisors, Bonnie Suba, who forced me one night, because she knew my routine. I would get off, go meet my boys at the club, and then come back the next day. And one night she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm gonna go meet the boys." And she said, "Well, you can't leave today until you fill this out." And it was the scholarship application for the Doc Sanchez program. And so I did that. And then as soon as I graduated from college, I joined active duty military, because 3 months before I was supposed to graduate, my grandmother passed away. And she was the only thing keeping me, you know, stuck on Guam. I say stuck, but, you know, tied to Guam. And so I had a choice at that time. Do I leave forever? Do I leave, you know, for a little bit? And my intent and my goal at the time, at that crossroads, was to leave, to join the military, get training, education, come back to Guam after I'm done doing all that, and then be a better public servant to the people of Guam than I was as a police officer. Don't get me wrong, being a police officer was very satisfying. To this day, I have people coming up to me saying, "Hey, do you remember me? You did this for me, you did that for me," whatever. Even people I've arrested that said, "You know, thank you for arresting me because that changed the trajectory of my life.
the way things
You know,
work out. Yeah.
Right, it is. So anyways, lo and behold, I joined in June 2001. And then we all know what happened in September 2001. 9/11 happened. So what I thought I was getting into turned out to be a whole different ball of wax. And so I ended up getting deployed back to back to back, 3 consecutive deployments. And then after that, I was like, okay, I think I've done what I'm supposed to do. And I put in my resignation, to resign my commission. And the Army at the time was hemorrhaging because they lifted stop loss, stop move, and then everybody wanted to get out because nobody wanted to be constantly at war and getting deployed over and over and over and over, right? And so they said to me, well, what can we do to make you stay? They offered me ACS, Advanced Civil Schooling, where I would go to get a degree in English or engineering or mathematics and then go be a professor at West Point and ride my career out that way. And so I Googled, what's it like over there? And they said 6 feet of snow every year. I said, no, thank you, right?
Make a difference.
Yeah, so I said, what else can you give me? And so they said, well, it's not guaranteed, but you can apply for this thing called FLEP, Funded Legal Education Program. And so I did that, got in, by the grace of God. And then as soon as I was done with my military obligation, I came back to Guam and became a prosecutor. And so here I was, from this literally dirt poor situation, because our tin shack back in the day didn't have floors. We put carpet on the ground. That was our house, right? So anyways, going from that to having a law degree, becoming a lawyer, and I paid 0 for any of my schooling. So it was, I like to say there's a doctor that paid for my bachelor's degree. It's Doc Sanchez, right? Yeah. And then my uncle paid for my law degree. It was Uncle Sam, right? And so, I didn't plan any of this, but I always knew that I wanted to serve. And that's why I'm here. And the question was, why do I want to be the Attorney General of Guam? Because the Attorney General of Guam has to have 3 things, right? It's integrity, competence, and leadership. And for the last going on 8 years, we haven't had an Attorney General of Guam because those 3 things have been lacking. So that's why I'm running for Attorney General of Guam.